Hello Internet, it's Zeg, here by myself, because, well, okay, we're in No Man's Sky, I should point that out first. And I'm here by myself because basically we missed our weekend recording time and we need a video to put up, and, you know, so I'm the one to do it. But also I'm here in No Man's Sky because every time we talk about No Man's Sky on the podcast, Rob has a little difficulty understanding what it is exactly that I do that he doesn't, that makes me money, basically. Because No Man's Sky is a very difficult game to explain and has a whole bunch of what I would call, like, half-hidden information and half, like, semi-legitimate exploits, I guess. So I figured that I might as well make this video for Rob's benefit as well, while I'm doing a video by myself. So we're going to start off here in my settlement, which is actually not a great settlement. I think it's still only... is it still B class? Yes, it is still B class. I've never actually got that updated, or I can pick up my random crap because I haven't logged in for a while. So that builds up over time, but that's not really what we're here to talk about, I guess. Let's get the citizens request done. I mean, yep, sure, just more happiness, keep improving things. Oh, and then fight some sentinels, apparently. That's not the right gun. How do I even play this game? Already forgot. Okay, good. Right, got that out of the way. Yes, and that's really all that I need to do on my settlements. No, wait, a stranger will arrive in 18 minutes. Okay, well, something else is going to happen to this settlement. But yes, settlement's tiny amount of passive money, not really relevant. I mean, this is only B class. Maybe it gets better when it's S class, but I think I've built all the building it's possible to build in this settlement. I don't really understand the settlement system very well. But that is just step one of what you would call the daily loop, things that reset approximately daily. So let's go to step 2 of the daily loop, which is my actual main base. Which is on our planet with a very weird red filter, as you can see. So this base is primarily this plant growing area. I've got 6 biodomes back here with all the various plants in, and it's basically set up so that if I harvest all of these plants, I have exactly the right amount of materials to make the top tier of products, I guess. And also there's a few extra plants growing outside, which I'll just go and harvest first. The ones that can grow outside. I'm not sure these are actually necessary for my, like, for the proportions of the recipe. These are just like bonus plants, I guess. But the main reason I built this base on this planet and this specific location is because, as you may have noticed by its name, this is the salt oxygen base. We've got the salt silo on this side and the oxygen silo on this side, which is actually, you see where the pipes go off. Over that way there's the oxygen patch, and over that way there's a salt patch, and over that way somewhere there's a, I think you can just see it between those trees. And way down there, there's the power location. So if you've got the, I forgot how you do it. If you go into your visor when you've got the upgraded survey visor, you have the power, the mineral, and the gas. So you can get different ones depending on the environment of the planet. And what I then did was search around until I found basically one of each type that I could put a base equidistant from, so that the base could be in the middle and access all three of them. So yes, the power one and the salt one and the oxygen one are all approximately the same distance apart, which is within range for the base building system to allow me to harvest all of them at once. And then the specific reason you want salt and oxygen, which I'll just take out of here. The specific reason you want salt and oxygen is because salt and oxygen are kind of the key to the first of the weird semi-legitimate exploits of No Man's Sky, which is like item duplication. So let me finish harvesting all the plants first. Here to where I have my storage containers. Not that you need the storage containers necessarily. I'm not entirely sure how it works, but you can now craft using stuff that's in the storage containers without having to open them and take the stuff out, which I think was a fairly recent change. Oh yeah, right, of course. My inventory is entirely full of mesh decouplers because I took them out of my settlement. Let me just send all those to my freighter. Yeah, okay, that's everything. Apart from that, that's not technically anything to do with this. That goes in Starship. Okay, so with all of these plants, I should be able to craft in the trade items category the fusion igniter and the stasis device. So these recipes you can unlock either by getting them from hacking factories, or you can just go to the anomaly and buy them for nanites. I believe they're nanites. It's been a long time since I did this. But if you look at the actual recipe tree here, you can see that they start with basically there's all the different types of plants. There's the different alloy metals that you can get in various ways. And there's the what they're called enhanced gas products, which are basically different atmospheric gases combined with condensed carbon in this case. So if I go and look in my actual, which one of these storage containers would it be? Is it this one? No, that's modules. Farming products. It should be this one. Yes. So in here I've got a bunch of extra of the alloy metals and the enhanced alloy metals, and some leftover bits of the various other components, so I don't necessarily have to go from all the way from the plants upwards every time. But if I just do this, if I just go into here, it should automatically pull those. So you can see that up here it says I've already got the superconductor because that's pulling it out, and the geodesite because that's pulling it out of the storage. So all I need to actually do is just basically click on all these ones that are highlighted. And that's the fusion igniter, and then I can do the same thing for the whatever it's called, stasis device. And then you have 2 Gravitino bubbles, which was just some extra plant space I had, and a little bit left over, which I think goes in the farming. Does it go in? No, it doesn't go in the farming container. It goes in the random container. Yes. This is where I'm storing all my overflow plants. Oh, I've already got a full stack of cactus. Yep, for reasons that we'll get into in a minute, and a full stack of that as well. The salt and oxygen, the fungal mold. Right. Okay, so that's my sort of baseline daily money. Oh, and I guess I should also point out that nothing that I'm doing here is by any means the actually most efficient way to do anything. It's just the way I do it, because I like to play in a like semi-legitimate way, but as I said, this game is like full of weird kind of legitimate exploits. So it's some things that I've done that are sort of exploited, but not. So the stasis device and the fusion igniter are both like 15 million credits, so that's like 30 million credits per day just from running that. And obviously that's why there's 6 that's why I have 6 biodomes, because then I grow exactly enough plants, because some of the plants grow a lot quicker, but I just have them set up so that when they're all grown in approximately a 20 hour, no, or is it 16 hours? I think the longest growing plants take like 16 hours, but once they're all fully grown and I can just harvest them all, then I can make the fusion igniter. So now we can talk briefly about, while we're here, we can talk about the how you clone, well, how you basically generate materials for free. Because you'll notice that in my inventory I just have, you know, full stacks of, well, not full stacks, fairly high stacks of all the basic materials that you might need for, like, you know, interacting with the world, basically. And that's because for most of these materials there are crafting recipes that use either oxygen or salt, or, well, salt is used for slightly different things, but often oxygen, where you can just clone them if you use a, like, medium refiner. So if I go in here and throw in a stack of oxygen and then throw in some condensed carbon, you'll see that it gives you this recipe where it uses 2 oxygen and 1 carbon to make 6 condensed carbon. So you're basically getting 6 times as much condensed carbon now at the cost of, you know, a third of the oxygen, which is why you build your base at an oxygen mining position to get infinite oxygen over time, and then you can use that to clone the other resources, so you never have to bother mining any of the basic stuff. And that recipe applies to, like, most of the stuff. Like, it'll work for cobalt, it'll work for sodium. The one for iron is slightly different, because if you do oxygen and iron you get rusted metal, which is you can use that to generate more iron in a certain, I think if you use salt again to, like, unrust the rusted metal, it's better. But there's another similar kind of recipe that will let you generate infinite iron if you need to do that as well. Now my inventory's all disorganized, out of the way I like it. Right, so that's what oxygen is for, basically, for cloning stuff. The one other thing that clones is chromatic metal with the stellar metals, which if they should be in here again. These ones, the different colors of stellar metal. So if you, let's just take this one. If you take the chromatic metal, so you have this recipe where the stellar metals refines into chromatic metals, and the higher quality the stellar metal, the better that ratio becomes. But if you then put chromatic metal back in with it, you can turn the chromatic metal back into the stellar metals at a multiple ratio, basically, and that also increases depending on the stellar metal. So I think, if I remember rightly, it's only worth it on the green and blue ones. Like, you can only generate more using the green and blue, but obviously if you need copper, or I forget what the other one's called, cadmium? The red one. If you need the yellow or red one, you can still use chromatic metal plus a, like, seed of the stellar metal to generate more of it. So as long as you have some of the blue and green so you can generate more chromatic metal, then you can essentially generate all 4 of the different colors. Or, well, there's now a 5th color of chromatic metal that's been introduced in the previous patch to this one, but the what's this called, quartzite. The cloning recipes for that are slightly different and a bit more awkward, but that's a whole different situation. All the purple star stuff is significantly more well, significantly different. And then salt, that's where you come into the different atmospheric gases. So different types of planets have different atmospheric gases that you can pull. If this wasn't if I wasn't mining oxygen, I could be mining whichever one of the atmospheric gases is on this planet. But you can also put down the atmosphere harvester, this one, which can pull whichever atmospheric gas is in the atmosphere, and there's also the equivalent of that for oxygen somewhere. I forget where that is in this list. Is it? Yeah, oxygen harvester. Those ones run on carbon power rather than the power grid, so that's why it's better to use the proper base harvesters if you can find the spots to do it. But yeah, the atmosphere harvester will pull the atmospheric gas as well. And then the trick there is that although you only get one on the planet that you found your base on, you can, if you put in... Oh wait, I actually need to get it out of the storage. If you have one of the atmospheric gases in the refiner, it will turn directly into the next one in the loop. So it's a triangular loop where each one changes into the next one. But it's at a 3:1 ratio. But if you put salt in here... Oh, wait, no, not salt. I forget what it is. Damn it. Is it salt? Or no, or am I thinking of... It's not chlorine, or is it salt and carbon? Oh, let me look up the recipe. Oh no, it's oxygen again. Of course, it's always oxygen. You put oxygen in there, not the salt. The salt is for something else, which we'll get to in a sec, because I've just remembered what it is. Put the oxygen in there, then it's a 1:1 ratio, and it uses the oxygen, so you can just basically 1:1 convert the atmospheric gases between each other using the oxygen again. So oxygen is the key to everything, basically. And then what the salt is actually used for is when you've got the plant products, you can use the salt to convert them into the relevant planetary material. So the cactus that grows on the arid planets, the arid mineral is pyrite, so you can convert the cactuses that you grow into the planetary material. And then if I remember rightly, there's also a way to convert the planetary materials between each other. That's not one that I use quite so much. Where would that be in this list? Oh, okay, so dioxide and pure ferrite turns into phosphorus, is that? Yes, okay, so it's pure ferrite does the conversion loop between each of the different elements. So if you need to do that, you can use the iron to convert. It's at a worse ratio, but that's, maybe you'll need that in case you need, like, dioxide is often used in repairing ships if you're doing that. Let me just put this excess stuff away. Those need selling, then both of those need processing. Just throw an amount of oxygen in there. Oh, no, wait. What am I saying? Not oxygen. That was the whole point of that thing that I just said. It's salt. Okay, and that's really all I need to do at the base. So now we can go up to my freighter, which is up here. Because this is where I usually leave it parked. I could just teleport up there, but I might as well fly up. Okay, yes, so that's pretty much the process of making that 30 million a day in terms of money. That just runs in the background. But now, of course, there's all my frigate fleet, so let's actually just quickly look at my fleet before I complete all the frigate missions. So at this point, I have a fleet of... basically a fleet of 5 of every type, 5 of each type of ship. And at this point they're very nearly all S-class, but you can see I've noted in their name what class they were when I actually got them. So they have all leveled up over time, and it doesn't take super many missions to do it, but that depends on how, you know, how often you're completing the missions on a daily basis or whatever. So, but so long as you have, since you can only do 5 missions a day, you want 5 of each type of ship, and then depending on which missions are which we'll get to in a minute, I guess, when I send them all back out, that will determine the fleet compositions you'll need. So let me just complete all this. Don't even read any of this any longer, just totally skip through it and sort out the stuff afterwards. And these fleet missions will obviously generate, you know, some amount of money per day as well. I'm not sure exactly how much, because I usually don't even pay attention to that either. It might actually, since I've done this so quickly, it might actually total it at least 1.2 million, I guess. So let's have a look at what I actually got out of that. Now the trouble with doing it like this is a lot of it, most of it ends up in the freighter. Well, all of it ends up in the freighter, but it overflows into my actual inventory. So let's have a look at what we actually got, apart from all the mesh decouplers that came off the harvest of the planet settlement. So iridesite, we've got a storage module for ships. We got a bunch of the various like alloys and whatnot. Some stellar metals, you usually get a bit of those. Some random rarities like archaeological rarities quite often. Some effigies and all those stuff. And those are meant to be there because those are the frigate modules and bulkheads. Yes, I think that's everything. And probably some stuff ended up in my ship's cargo as well, but I didn't see what. It was probably all these extra convergence cubes, since I keep a stack in my hold, even though I'm well past needing to use those any longer. So let's try and put all this where it's meant to go. Blue metal we don't need any longer, so that goes for sale. We don't need those or those or those. Those for sale, those for sale, those for sale, those I think I'm probably full on. Oh no, I need one more to finish my stacks. Yeah, that's all full. Do I need green? No, that's a full stack as well. Ship modules go in one of these containers. Okay, so pretty much all of the rest of this is just for sale. I might keep the artifacts because you can sometimes hand in the artifacts to the guild representatives in stations, which I'll probably go and look at in a minute. Right, I think all the rest of this can just get sold. unfortunately, the trouble is that I'm always having to fight against what is meant to be in my inventory and what no longer needs to be in my inventory. I really wish at some point, you know, they would update this whole UI. It would make things so much easier, but we kind of have to live with this. Like, I don't even recognize I have superconductive fibers in my inventory at the moment. Indium. It's like graphitino coatings. Okay, that should be everything. Where exactly are those? Oh, they're down here. Why are they there? Oh, I think that's another thing that you can sometimes hand into the guild representatives. Oh, I don't even know. Sometimes I lose track of what I have stashed in my inventory. Alright, so that's the general fleet stuff dealt with. I also have just a little bit more extra farming going on up here. And a guy stuck in the floor. This is where I grow the drugs. And a few extra normal plants also. Those should have gone into the freighter, yes. So the reason that I grow the drugs in here is because typically I'm not actually, you know, warping my freighter, so it never gets scanned, so I never get any problems with contraband, and I can just sell them right from here. See, they count as smuggled contraband, and that adds to the total of goods that I've smuggled statistic, which is a thing that you can level up. And then if we go over onto this side of my freighter, which is not... I don't actually use this side very much any longer. You've got the stellar extractor that gives you just a little constant flow of either gases or chromatic metal, depending on where your freighter is. And then we've got the 3 large refiners, which these ones were what I was using to do the other important recipe of hydrogen cycling. Because you may have noticed that when you're needing to make freighter fuel, it takes dihydrogen and tritium. So tritium you can get from mining asteroid belts, although nowadays I usually just hang around in a station and just buy it off traders because it's pretty cheap, rather than having to go to an asteroid belt and shoot rocks for a while. But the dihydrogen has the very useful, especially in the early game where you're also needing to make launch fuel, the useful recipe of hydrogen cycling. So if you take dihydrogen and process it in here, just do one, it takes a minute. It uses 30 dihydrogen to make a dihydrogen jelly. But then once you've done that, you can take the dihydrogen jelly and process it back down into dihydrogen, and I believe you get more. But I'm going to actually have to look at this recipe because I haven't stopped to check it for a while. But yeah, basically that's why I have these 3 refiners on my ship, is so that if I need more dihydrogen, I can just set them all going, because it takes a minute per jelly, so it takes 20 minutes to do the full 20 you can do at a time. So you just set all of these going with dihydrogen, convert 20 rounds of dihydrogen jelly in each, and then turn it back into dihydrogen afterwards, which should, assuming this recipe hasn't changed, actually give you more dihydrogen back than what you put in. So that used 30 to make this. If we kick that out, put this over here, you get 40 back. So, and it takes a much less amount of time when you're doing the other side of the process. So yes, using that recipe you can generate infinite dihydrogen sort of in the background. There is some problems with that where occasionally, like, the contents of the refiners won't load correctly when you board ships in certain conditions, and that also applies to refiners in your base. So sometimes you have to like reload the base and stuff to get it to remember what it was meant to be doing, and weird things like that. But you can also do that on your personal refiner. Once you have the personal refiner Mark II, it does use fuel, but then you can basically just have that running in the background the entire time you're running around, and constantly switch the recipes backwards and forwards as well. So any recipe, like any of the item plus oxygen recipes that you might want to multiply stuff while you're just out and about, you can do that as well. So the Personal Refiner Mark II is pretty useful to unlock at the anomaly. So now let's look at my frigate missions and send them out. Oh, I coincidentally have one of each type of mission. Well, not quite, because there's a balanced one. So the trick with frigate fleets is that you have the 5 of each type. I do believe I have, yes, I do have 5 of each type. You have the 5 of each type, but you don't actually want to send out 5 of each type on even a fully so this is a fully exploration mission, right? Yes, this is an exploration mission, so obviously I want my exploration ships. But what you actually want to do is also get 5 support vessels, because support vessels usually have a stat bonus that reduces the amount of fuel the fleet uses. So if you put 1 support vessel on with your 4 regular vessels, obviously the stats will be good. So my fleet rating is 5 stars, obviously, because everything's S-class as well. But that will significantly reduce the amount of fuel you need in theory. I mean, let me actually look at that. So that was 300 tons. So what if I just put all 5 exploration vessels in? 350. Well, I mean, that's not super significant, but it's an amount of savings. So let me just craft up some frigate fuel so I can send everyone out. It usually takes about 12 of these per day, depending on how long these missions are. So 4 explorations and a support. Get them. We've got trade. Actually, I should do this by star rating. What's next highest? Industrial and combat. 4 industrials and a support. Combat patrol. I do have a couple of organic ships which have different stats. So one of my organic ships is classed as combat, and one of my organic ships is classed as exploration. And if you want to make upgrade modules for the living ships, then you need to send these out on missions as well. So if I send that guy out with 3 of the combat ships and the support vessel. And the trade one. And for the balance, we can send out that other organic ship, and we want, let's see, we'll send the Raider trade industrial support. No, I don't quite have enough. Slightly underestimated the fuel. This must have been a slightly longer range day. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, and that's my fleet sent out. You'll also notice that I also have a bunch of freighter upgrades, which is something we'll get to in a sec, I guess. But yeah, some of these have upgrades for, I think which ones these it is. It's probably these ones, right? Yes. Expedition efficiency, which is basically fuel usage, and I have these in the supercharged slots on my freighter grid, so that makes them slightly better as well. So that's a slight saving in fuel. Now I also have a speed overcharge as well, but that's kind of irrelevant because, you know, the missions take approximately a day anyway, so many hours, so you're not going to exactly get... Well, and the missions only re-roll every day as well, so you can really only do it once every 24 hours. So the speed one is kind of pointless, but might as well put it in there. Right, and that should be all we need to talk about on the freighter, I think. So let's go back down to the hangar and jump in my ship. I guess we can briefly talk about my ship as well. I'm currently using a Sentinel ship. It's only A class, but it's... I mean, I've already basically upgraded it to as much, you know, as far as I can. So it's got all of its supercharged slots, which I'm using for like the shields and guns, basically. Yeah, I kind of like the Sentinel ships mainly just for one specific feature of them, which is that when you're flying in planetary atmosphere, Sentinel ships can entirely stop in midair. So you don't. So if you're shooting ground targets, you can basically just become a turret. You can just stop and hover in place, which is kind of useful. But I also have there's my actual living ship over here, which is not very well upgraded. I mean, I've got at least 3 upgrades for each of the modules. They're just not all S-class or whatever yet, and I haven't done any upgrades to any of the storage, basically. So, yeah, I haven't really been using that much, but it's not completely terrible. And then, I don't remember, do I have any other ships that I need to worry about? Got the ship from the last expedition. I've got a couple of other different Sentinel ships and a couple of solar ships. Oh, and my weird-shaped... the weird-shaped ship. It's over here. The ball ship. I used to use that for quite a while, but then I got the Sentinel ships and I just sort of preferred them for, well, for the hovering ability mainly. So now let's quickly go out to the station so we can have a look at missions and whatnot, basically. Where even is the station around here? Okay, so on stations, what I'll typically do is, whenever I come to a new system, go and look at the mission agent. Now the trick with the missions... oh, I've got some to hand in, apparently. The trick with the missions is, like, a lot of these are just too inconvenient for the, like, basically for the amount of reward you get. Like... it also depends on which, like, some of these missions send you to specific locations and some of them will let you do it anywhere. So a lot of the ones that are like kill animals or kill sentinels are just like, you can do that wherever. And you will also have ones that are sometimes like take a photo of an animal. Those ones can either be very specific where it's like, go to this planet and photograph this animal, or they can be general where it's just like, just take a photo of an animal somewhere. So depending on that, whether the missions are specific or not, generally I'll just take the ones that are unspecific, so I can just pick, have them happen naturally while I'm doing other stuff. So every time I dock in a station, I'll just pick up any missions that are like kill stuff, and then just whenever they complete, I'll just go and hand them back in, because you don't even have to come back to the same station to hand them in or anything. So that's just like a convenient background way to make a little bit of extra money and nanites. And then up here we've got the guild representative. So if you donate a variety of different stuff, you can upgrade your standing, I guess. Obviously the higher tier of stuff you donate, the more standing you get, but then depending on your rank, you start getting more and more useful stuff. So at the moment, I've got the merchants up high enough that I can get a salvage frigate module for free at every station that I dock at, which is obviously pretty sweet for upgrading my freighter and all this other stuff that I could potentially use. but I'm not worried about that particularly. And then the last thing to talk about is the actual sort of, I guess, the big money maker once you start getting going, which is down here with the salvaged scrap dealer for the abandoned freighters. So it takes 5 million units to buy the salvaged freighter scanner, and that you can buy, I believe you can buy 3 per day, and it goes, and the price increases by 5 million each time, if I remember correctly. But the important thing about that is that I think after you've done one, there's a guy on the anomaly who will give you an extra one for free every week. So that's just an extra thing to pick up while you're at the anomaly. But yeah, the abandoned freighters are how you get the freighter upgrade modules. And they are just like, you also get a bunch of other random crap and salvageable scrap that you can trade back to that scrap dealer for a variety of things. But those are kind of, you know, you're paying 5 million for the scanner, but you do kind of make that at least that much money back usually. And you're also getting the freighter upgrade modules. So I guess I can quickly go and do one of those. If I can remember where I've put my scanners. I think they're in my exit inventory. No, not that one. Yeah, that one. So yes, that's once you have the scanner to get onto one of these, the derelict freighters. They are just a simple sort of combat thing, combat/exploration thing going around inside the freighter. And depending on what kind of, there's basically 3 different versions of the interior. Well, not the interiors are randomized, but there's 3 different kinds of like environments they can be. There's the one with the aliens, the one with the sentry robots, and then the one that's more abandoned. So let's try and find out which one this is. One thing you have to worry about is that once you're on board freighters, you move really slowly, and usually the environment is super cold as well. So you just have to look around for the little heaters, these things. And then your main job is to find all the salvage containers and read all the log snippets to find the basically login information that you need to access the ship systems. And if you scan while you're in here, all the containers light up, which makes them slightly easier to see. Okay, we've got the alien one here. So you can try and like sneak past if you really want to, but these alien things are like such little threat anyway, you might as well just kill them all. Especially if you're using what I'm using, the neutron burst, which basically has a splash damage area of effect thing, so it makes them quite easy to just pop all the aliens. This is obviously the right way to go, so I should go back to this other room. Nothing else in there anyway. If you destroy all these little blobs of alien goop, you get living slime, which is another thing to pay attention to in terms of weird recipes in your crafting list, is that all the different gunk resources convert into nanites at the end if you just reprocess them. Can I do this yet? I don't think I've got the login credentials yet. No, I can actually still do that part. All this stuff is, not at all necessary. Don't even need to read any of this. Just menu your way through. And that's one of the 2 items you need to collect, the crew manifest. That's still not the login details I need.
Temperature levels stabilizing. Falling.
Still haven't found it yet. Got to go down to the lower decks.
Thermal protection falling. Temperature levels stabilizing.
Oh, okay, there's the login data. which means I probably don't need to read any more of these, but not that I'm really reading them anyway. So the login data should get me in here. That gets you the captain's log, which is the second thing that you need to find. To read any more of that, so I should stop reading any more of that.
Levels stabilizing. Thermal protection falling.
He's still shooting at me. Oh, there is one.
Units received. Temperature levels stabilizing. Units received. Units received. Units received. Units received.
Okay, we should be getting close to the end now, I would think. Because, well, it says we're at 8 out of 9 areas explored whenever that bit of UI pops up, so we should be right at the end. Okay, yes, the final storage room. So we'll just finish clearing out all this stuff. Okay, that's actually going to be worth something. Let's actually take a quick look. Yeah, that one thing is worth 2 million, so that's half of the expense of buying the scanner. Okay, and then you just log into this computer. And you can either, well, you can get nanites, of course, but why would you want that? You can get the freighter bulkhead for upgrading the freighter's cargo, or you can get the freighter technology, which is what gives you those freighter upgrades. What we got? B class. It's B class, what is it? It's B class exploration module.
Thermal protection fully.
So the thing about the freighter modules is it's preset for each star system. So if you rerun another derelict freighter in the same star system, you'll get the same type and class of module. Or at least I believe it's exactly the same type and class. So if you happen to find a system where you get an S-class one, you can then basically run that system 2 more times to get the free, since you can only have 3 of the same module on the upgrade. If you wanted to do that, but normally I just run, I just run the freighter in the system that I come to as I'm exploring around. If I feel like doing a freighter, because I'm kind of not even doing these any longer. So let's have a quick look at what else I actually got out of this. That was a mission reward, so that doesn't count. 170,000 there. These, the crew manifest and the captain's log, you can turn in at either the, I believe it's the guild representative to get standing, or the scrap dealer to get money again, I think. We'll actually have to go and check that. Starship shield upgrade. 100,000 off that. Some relics. We've got some trade goods. That's 900,000. The tainted metal for the scrap trader. And another salvage frigate module. Oh, and of course, a whole shit ton of living slime from all those enemies that I killed, which that will convert into nanites. Which again, this is another reason to have the personal refiner on you, so that you can just like drop this in here. It does unfortunately mean you have to listen to this the whole time as you're running around. So let's get back to the station and see if we can sell off the manifests. Overshot a little bit, casually clipped through the wall. Yes, so you can turn in those to the guild manager and get the standing bonus. But obviously I don't need standing, especially not with this guild at the moment, so let's turn them into this guy and see what we actually get back out of it. More tainted metal, I guess. So that was an extra 500, and that's just worth 300,000 by itself, but then you can use it, the tainted metal here, to buy other stuff. Various randomized loot boxes, basically, and repair kits if you want to, like, quick repair starship parts, that kind of thing, and then a bunch of cosmetic stuff, and the various X-class modules, although you can get those other ways that aren't, as also, you can get them other ways that aren't as expensive, I would say, I guess. So yeah, I think that about covers the kind of things that I usually do to make money on a sort of ongoing basis as I'm just travelling around and doing other stuff, which, as I said, is definitely not as efficient as it could be, and I'm only using, some of the sort of weird exploits of clonable materials and whatnot, because there are a lot of even weirder stuff and a lot of other things that you can that you might never find out by yourself, which is really why we always talk about this on the podcast when Rob mentions about not understanding how the game works exactly, because the game doesn't tell you absolutely anything. Like, if I actually go and look at my recipe list, all of these recipes are only in here because I've used them. So the recipes that are unknown, it's just like, you just have to guess, or, you know, go and look it up on a wiki, which this game kind of leans into that too heavily, I feel like. I think it's sort of intentional, because they once we got past 2016 and we actually got like multiplayer and whatnot, they kind of lent quite heavily into the concept of community and multiplayer, where, you know, all the big expeditions have the community goals where it totals up the whole effort of the community to progress and that kind of stuff. So I feel like in some ways the game just sort of expects you to look certain amounts of stuff up on the wiki and not just find it out yourself. Because, I mean, you look at this, the complex refiner recipes where you're using 3 different ingredients. I mean, you could spend an absolute goddamn age just trying to slot every single different item into all 3 of the different slots of the refiner in every possible combination to find out what these recipes are. But, I mean, that's just ridiculous. I guess you just go and look it up on a wiki instead. And the same for the cooking recipes, which is the same problem. You got a bunch of random ingredients that you don't know how to put them together in not only what combinations, but in some cases kind of the right order. Because I've only just sort of discovered how to make like cake batter. Because, so you think of a cake, you think, okay, obviously it's like butter, eggs, milk, that kind of thing. Like, you know, a cake, like flour, those kind of things. And that is sort of right, but you'll notice if I go to, if I can find it in this list, this horribly not really organised list, if I can find the cake batter. Not dough, that's basic. Not sugar dough, that's different. Pastry, that's also different. I can't even see it in this list. I don't recognise the icon, that's the problem. Not meringue. Is it sugar dough? Does that count as... Is that... No, it's definitely called cake mixture, right? High case cake batter, there it is. So if you look at this, the cake batter, you have, so it's butter, flour, egg, and you might think, okay, that makes sense, but you'll notice this is called sweetened butter because you have to add sugar into the butter first before to convert it into sweetened butter, and then combine that with the flour and egg. And it's only through doing a whole bunch of experimentation that I found that out by myself, rather than just looking it up on a wiki. Because, like, would you logically think of mixing sugar into butter as, like, the first step in making a cake before you mix in the flour and egg? Probably not really. So yeah, I did eventually find this out on my own just by experimenting with, like, the basic sort of... the basic stuff, because once you can see that there are cakes, it's like, okay, so how do you make cake batter? And that's how you end up with dough, and you end up with sugar dough, and you end up with meringue dough, and then if you keep trying all the different combinations, eventually you might end up with cake batter. Or a pie case, which is also made from pastry, which is another type of dough. But yeah, so some of it you can find out on your own just by guessing, but as I say, all of this is just how long are you willing to randomly put different things into different slots in the crafting recipe, basically. Because unfortunately it doesn't even let you find stuff out in the opposite direction. So if I look at the cooking list here, which is all the cooking ingredients I've ever seen, this also includes food, and occasionally you get food as a reward for like missions or whatever. But even if you have a food that's like a finished food, you can't then basically look up the recipe for it. It's just like you can't work backwards from the finished product to find out what the recipe is unless you've cooked it from... You only know the recipe when you've cooked it rather than having the finished product and being able to work out what it is. Except for, as you'll notice in this cake description, it says these cake-like nutrients are processed from the base of cake batter, and therefore cake batter is a thing you could make, and therefore you might be able to guess what the ingredients are to make cake batter, which is how I worked that out eventually. Or you can look it up on Wiki. So yes, that's generally how I feel like this game is unnecessarily awkward, where everything is, you know, you might as well just go and look it up at a wiki at a certain point, and a lot of the stuff only kind of makes sense logically. Like it doesn't really make sense logically, where it's like you're mixing the sugar into the butter first or whatever. So you might not even be able to work it out, even if you could guess what the recipes might be. So anyway, that's the end of this video, I guess. I've pretty much covered my sort of daily loop. I wouldn't say that I do the freighters that often, but they're there. And there's a lot of stuff on the anomaly that I didn't go and look at directly, but you know, all those machines where you can purchase various recipes and stuff, a lot of them you might get through progressing the like base building mission tree. But once you get some amount of nanites, you can just go and purchase a lot of the important ones, like the backpack refiner and the scan visor to do the base resource scanning and that kind of stuff. And some of the important, well, you can get the base parts through the salvaged modules that you find on planets, and that one you do just kind of have to grind. But as long as you know what sort of base parts you want, it's maybe not that bad. Just get the biodomes if you want to grow the plants and that sort of stuff. So yeah, that's the end of this video. I'm going to leave now from No Man's Sky again. There's just been an update that's introduced another expedition, another whole thing, the actual like archaeology stuff, which is apparently this new merchant around the corner, which is why I hadn't seen this guy before. But yeah, I haven't done any of that yet, which is why I'm not going to go into that now. I don't know if that might be a useful way to make money in the future or not. Yeah, and that's it. So let me finish up this video by putting a bunch of words on the screen. Not really that many words. It's our website where you can get our podcast, where we talk about No Man's Sky occasionally when we've been playing it, which may come up again in the not super distant future, because I feel like Rob might be wanting to play it again shortly. You can also get notified about when we upload our podcast in various ways, which I'm not going to read out in full because they're on the screen and you can understand a web address, I'm pretty sure. And that's it for this video. There'll be more videos, hopefully with the full crew again, in approximately a couple of weeks' time, where we'll be going back to a different space game, almost certainly. And that's that. Goodbye. Wait, hang on. Goodbye.